Some firearms don't just drop in value. They fall off a cliff, like overnight. Folks who bought these in the last few years have watched their money evaporate, not because the gun got old, not because it got worn out, but because the market looked at them and said, nope, not touching that. And here's the part that surprises people. Some of the names on this list are brands you'd never expect to see here. Today I'm counting down the 12 guns with the worst depreciation in America. And number one is going to mess with your head. Let's go from bad purchase to absolute financial disaster. Number 12, Beretta APX A1. On paper, the APX A1 checks a lot of boxes. Modern striker-fired layout, optics ready, a price point hovering around $500 bucks. But here's the ugly truth. The market has basically turned its back on it, and the APX A1 has a fatal flaw that Beretta keeps acting like doesn't exist. Catastrophic trigger failures. Owners have reported the trigger bar spring snapping after as few as 500 rounds. That's not eventually. That's not high round count. That's 2 range trips. And once that spring breaks, the pistol is dead, completely inoperable. When a defensive handgun can't survive 2 normal range sessions without a mechanical failure, its resale value doesn't slowly drop. It evaporates. Then you've got the slide stop issue. Multiple owners say the lever will just shear off during normal use. Not abuse, not torture testing, just basic operation. We're talking about a safety critical part that looks like it's made out of pot metal, and it just quits mid-session. And Beretta's response? Radio silence. No recall, no serious public acknowledgement. So owners are stuck with broken guns they can't move. And dealers don't want them on trade because nobody wants to be married to that problem. The APX A1 is a perfect example of a big manufacturer phoning in quality control and the market delivering immediate consequences. Number 11, Taurus GX4. Taurus has spent decades trying to outrun the breaks-a-lot reputation, and the GX4 makes it real clear they haven't escaped it. This micro-compact 9mm rolled in around $300. It was trying to play in the same sandbox as a SIG P365 and the Springfield Hellcat. But here's the catch. It's a Taurus. The GX4 is notorious for striker drag. That's where the firing pin drags against the slide on every trigger press. Over time, it cuts grooves right into the metal. Owners describe it like a slow-motion failure you can't stop. Eventually, the striker binds, or it breaks. But the biggest depreciation killer? The magazine situation. That 11-round flush-fit magazine is infamous for failing to lock back on empty. In a defensive pistol, that's not a cute quirk. That's a disqualifier. Then stack on reports of trigger bar failures, random failures to fire, and even slides cracking at the rear sight dovetail, and now you've got a gun that loses about 60% of its value the second you take it home. Dealers don't want used GX4s because they know they'll sit forever, right next to functional carry guns from reputable makers. When the biggest selling point is it's cheap, depreciation isn't a risk. It's baked in. Number 10, Colt CBX Tactical. Colt issued a formal safety recall on the CBX rifles. And when a rifle gets that kind of recall, that's basically a resale death certificate. The problem lives in the fire control group. Specifically, the hammer and trigger assembly can malfunction and potentially cause the rifle to fire when the safety is disengaged or when the bolt is closed. Let that sink in. A rifle that can go off without you touching the trigger. That's not a reliability hiccup. That's a legal liability grenade. The recall requires owners to ship the rifle back to Colt for inspection and parts replacement. But here's the reality owners keep reporting. They wait months. During that time, the rifle is useless. And even after the recall work is done, the trust is shattered. When a legacy name like Colt issues a safety recall like that, the secondhand market treats that model like toxic waste. Dealers now want proof the recall work was completed before they'll even consider a trade. And even then, they offer pennies. The CBX started around $1,000 to $1,200. Used ones now struggle to pull $600. And that's only with recall paperwork in hand. A 50% drop because Colt couldn't nail the fire control group. Number 9, Kel-Tec KSG. The KSG is the bullpup shotgun that looked awesome, right up until people actually tried to run it. This thing is a mechanical headache dressed up as tactical innovation. Dual magazine tube sounds incredible, until you live with it. The tube selector switch is known for breaking or jamming, so you end up stuck on one tube, or worse, neither tube feeds right. Owners describe spring failures inside the magazine tubes, where the spring literally lets go and launches out mid-session, like springs flying across the range. That's not a vibe. That's cheap materials and rough engineering choices. Then you've got the pump. The design makes it easy to short stroke, and when that happens, the gun can go out of battery. Now you're holding a 7-pound paperweight until you manually clear the mess. And we've got to talk about the blast, because with the bullpup layout and the chamber right near your face, the concussion is borderline abusive. The KSG was sold as the future of combat shotguns. Reality? It's a range toy that doesn't even run reliably at the range. Used KSG units have lost over 55% off the original 900 MSRP because most people don't want to gamble on Kel-Tec quality control roulette. Number 8, Smith & Wesson M and P12. Smith & Wesson issued a formal safety recall on the M and P12, and it's one of the roughest recalls we've seen in recent years. The issue involves the striker assembly. It can release unexpectedly, causing the shotgun to fire without the trigger being pulled. Uncommanded discharges in a shotgun platform. That's catastrophic. The recall applies to certain serial number ranges, but the confidence damage hits the entire model. Even units outside the recall cloud are getting crushed on value, because buyers don't want to play detective trying to figure out if they're buying a safe gun or a lawsuit waiting to happen. And here's what makes it worse. The M and P12 was already fighting uphill. It was a budget bullpup shotgun trying to compete with the already problematic Kel-Tec KSG. The M and P12 started around $650 to $700. After the recall, dealers are offering $300 to $350, even when the recall work is documented. That's a 50% hit in under 3 years on a major manufacturer's flagship shotgun. When Smith & Wesson can't deliver a safe scattergun, the market hands down a brutal verdict. Number 7, FN 502 Tactical. FN America didn't just have one problem here. They dropped 2 separate safety actions on the 502 Tactical, and that double punch wrecked the resale market. First, a safety bulletin in 2023 warning about potential slide failures. Then a formal safety recall in 2024 for striker-related issues. That could cause uncommanded discharges. Here's what really stings. The 502 was marketed as a premium rimfire pistol, $649 MSRP, nearly double what a lot of competitors cost, like the Ruger Mark V or the Browning Buck Mark. People paid that price expecting legendary FN quality. Instead, they got a gun FN couldn't confidently say wouldn't fail or fire when it shouldn't. The recall involves replacing the entire striker assembly. But even after the fix, buyer trust is gone. Nobody wants to pay premium money for a rimfire pistol that already got recalled. So the used market did what it always does. Used 502 pistols with recall work done are moving for about $350 to $400. That's around 40% depreciation in under 3 years. FN built its reputation off guns like the FN 57 and the SCAR. The 502 Tactical proves reputation doesn't protect you when the product ships with serious safety defects. Hey, before we hit the next one, quick favor. If you're getting any value out of this video so far, hit that like button. It helps the channel reach more solid folks like you. All right, back to it. Number 6, Kimber R7 Mako. Kimber issued a formal recall on the R7 Mako. The defect is in the firing pin safety block, and it's the kind of recall that makes buyers instantly back away. Simple problem, big consequences. The firing pin safety block can fail to engage correctly, which can allow the gun to fire if it's dropped. In today's world, a gun that can discharge when dropped isn't just iffy, it's legally radioactive. The recall covers thousands of R7 Mako pistols built within specific dates, but the confidence hit spreads across the whole R7 lineup, and it doesn't help that Kimber's reputation has been hanging by a thread for years. especially from quality control headaches on their 1911 platforms. Those tight tolerances sound premium in marketing, but in the real world, they can turn into malfunctions unless you're running the most expensive ammo you can find. The R7 Mako recall confirmed what a lot of critics already suspected. Kimber's quality control issues aren't limited to 1911s. The R7 Mako started around $599 for the standard model and climbed above $700 for upgraded versions. Now, post-recall used R7 Makos struggle to fetch $350 to $400, even with documented recall work. That's nearly 50% depreciation on a micro-compact 9mm that was supposed to be Kimber's welcome to the striker-fired world moment. When the recall involves a gun potentially firing when dropped, the market doesn't forgive. It sentences. Number 5. Colt Python 2020. This one's gonna sting some people, but the modern Colt Python is not the same animal as the original legend, and the market knows it. Colt brought back the Python name in 2020 with huge hype and an MSRP around $1,500 to $1,700. Nostalgia did the heavy lifting early. Then reality showed up. The modern Python has quality control issues that would have been unthinkable on the old ones. Timing problems where the cylinder doesn't lock up correctly, forcing cones eroding sooner than they should. Finish work that looks closer to a $400 Taurus than a $1,700 Colt. Owners also report cylinder end shake, front-to-back play, right out of the box. That's not a break-in. That's a manufacturing defect on a revolver that costs more than some folks' monthly mortgage. Then there's the trigger. Colt marketed that smooth double-action pull, but owners are describing gritty, stacking triggers that don't feel anything like the originals. If you charge $1,700 for a revolver built almost entirely on nostalgia, and it shows up feeling like a $500 gun, the market punishes you. Used modern Pythons are now selling for about $1,000 to $1,200. That's around a 30% drop, and it doesn't sound insane until you remember these are only 4 to 5 years old. The Python name used to mean instant investment. The 2020 reboot, instant depreciation. Number 4, SIG Sauer Cross. SIG issued a formal recall on the Cross bolt-action rifle, and for a company that markets precision non-stop, this one was embarrassing. The issue is in the bolt assembly. The Cross can potentially fire when the bolt is closed, even if the trigger wasn't pulled. A precision rifle that can discharge during bolt cycling. That's not a rimfire plinker. That's a rifle chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor and 308 Winchester. Cartridges running over 60,000 psi. An uncommanded discharge at that pressure is a nightmare scenario. The recall requires replacing the entire bolt assembly. But the damage is already stamped into the model's reputation. The SIG Cross launched at $1,799 MSRP. It was pitched as a revolutionary ultralight hunting and precision rifle. But the real story is SIG shipped rifles with a fundamental safety defect in the most critical component. After the recall, used Cross rifles are selling around $1,100 to $1,300, even with recall work documented. That's a $500 to $700 hit in less than 4 years. SIG's pattern of rushing products out the door and fixing them later finally caught up. When you recall a bolt-action rifle because the bolt can cause uncommanded discharges, that's a foundational failure as a firearms manufacturer. Number 3, Remington R51 Gen 2. The Gen 2 R51 is the gun that refuses to die, even though it should have been put down years ago. The original R51 launched in 2014, and it was so catastrophically broken that Remington issued a total recall and pulled it from the market entirely. They promised Gen 2 would fix it. It didn't. The Gen 2 R51 still suffers from failures to extract, failures to eject, and slides that literally crack during normal use. Owners also report that the Pedersen hesitation lock system, the gun's big selling point, is fundamentally unreliable with modern ammunition. That system requires precise timing, and Remington's tolerances were too loose to pull it off consistently. So what do you get? A gun that jams every 10 to 15 rounds. Then there are the sights. The R51 uses a weird sight picture Remington called innovative. Shooters call it unusable in real-world conditions. And parts availability? With Remington out of business and the brand sold off, R51 parts are basically non-existent. So when it breaks, and it will break, you're holding an expensive paperweight. The Gen 2 R51 launched around $440. Used ones now struggle to sell for $200 to $250. That's over 40% depreciation on a gun that isn't even that old. The R51 is proof that sometimes a design is just flawed at the core, and no amount of Gen 2 marketing can save it. Number 2, SIG Sauer P320. The P320 is the most legally toxic firearm in modern American history. Even though the U.S. military adopted versions as the M17 and M18, the civilian P320 has been hit with countless lawsuits alleging uncommanded discharges, guns firing while holstered, no trigger manipulation, no finger involved. The technical controversy centers on the striker system. Critics and legal experts have alleged the sear can be disengaged with minimal movement, as little as 0.05 inches, leaving the pistol vulnerable to discharge from outside pressure. SIG has defended the design aggressively, but the lawsuits keep stacking up. We're talking about officers shot in the leg while the gun was holstered, guns discharging after being set down on tables, documented cases of P320s firing during drop tests. SIG eventually offered a voluntary upgrade to the trigger mechanism, but they never admitted the original design was defective. That word game doesn't change the market reality. A big chunk of the shooting community sees the P320 as a liability. Owners report insurance companies refusing coverage on P320-related incidents. Some instructors ban them from classes. Competition circles scrutinize them hard. When a gun becomes synonymous with uncommanded discharge, its value doesn't just slide, it collapses. The civilian P320 started around $500 to $600 for basic models and climbed past $1,000 for upgraded versions. The used market responded with brutal efficiency. Used P320s sell around $350 to $450, a 30 to 40% drop. But the real hit is worse. Plenty of dealers won't even take them on trade at any price. When something becomes legally radioactive, it becomes functionally worthless. Number 1, CZ Scorpion Evo 3. This is it, the single most worthless firearm in America right now. The CZ Scorpion Evo 3 used to be king of the pistol caliber carbine world. People loved the look, loved the feel, loved the ergonomics. But today it's the undisputed champion of catastrophic value loss. And the reason isn't fashion. It's a metallurgical failure so serious it turns the gun into a danger. The factory bolt is made from steel that isn't hardened enough. After as few as 3,000 to 5,000 rounds, the area around the firing pin block hole starts to deform or peen. That deformation can trap the firing pin block in the open position, which disables the critical safety mechanism that help prevent out-of-battery discharges. When that safety fails, the Scorpion turns into a bomb. Direct blowback runs at about 35,000 PSY for 9mm NATO. If it fires even slightly out of battery, that pressure vents into the polymer clamshell receiver, and that can cause a catastrophic explosion. The internet is packed with images of destroyed Scorpions. Receivers split open, polymer shattered, and in some cases, injuries to shooters. CZ has never issued a formal recall, so owners are left to solve it themselves. And the fix costs real money, $250 to $300 for an aftermarket bolt from companies like Nexus Firearms. When a gun needs a 40% safety tax on top of its MSRP just to be safe to shoot, its value gets wiped out. The CZ Scorpion Evo 3 originally sold around $800 to $1,000 depending on configuration. Used Scorpions with factory bolts are now functionally worthless. Dealers won't touch them. Even Scorpions with aftermarket bolts installed struggle to get $400 to $500 because the stigma is too severe. We're talking 50 to 60% depreciation. And the story is even uglier. Many Scorpions can't be sold at all because no responsible dealer wants that liability. The Scorpion proves something a lot of people hate admitting. Even legendary manufacturers can ship a product that becomes worthless overnight when fundamental safety defects surface. That's the CZ Scorpion Evo 3. A technical marvel that turned into a financial disaster. That brings us to the end of the video. So drop your thoughts and your experience down in the comments. And subscribe to the Armory for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.